not to pay for it. So, okay, hi everybody and welcome to our April 2022 Inclusion and Wellbeing Forum. Today's forum is looking at triangulation of data for meaningful student support. So as always, our forum Decorum. I'm Catherine O'Farrell. I am one of the founding members of Incluzun.com. I am supported here by our wonderful host, Ms. Harmeet Kaur, who is the big boss, the managing director of Incluzun.com. Do you want to say hello, Harmeet?
Hi, everyone. Don't listen to a word of what Catherine says. We're both the bosses, both the big bosses. We've got our bigger boss as well around in this forum.
And we probably have the big bosses. Our wonderful support system, Miss Bhavna, is here, and I wonder maybe Usha might be here also. So we have full team here to support today. As usual, we are recording all of the sessions, and all of the sessions are free and open to everyone. They're available on our YouTube channel. I've put the link in the chat. We would ask that all mics be muted so that we can present. If you have questions throughout, you can put them in the chat, and Ms. Harmeet will monitor the chat and we'll come to them during toward the end of the session or during the session if anyone has a really burning question. Please, can we keep all of our questions and comments strictly around student support, data management? We don't name schools and we don't name individual students, but if you have a question about any area of inclusion or well-being, we're happy to discuss. We don't discuss individual cases, as I said, and we are all in the same kind of roles as you. We are all presenters as either former or current heads of inclusion or SENCOs practicing, and we understand the role from the school side, from the therapeutic side, and also from the corporate side. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, so our key takeaways for today's session, we will be looking at triangulation of data, we will be looking at tracking and monitoring, different types of tools that we can use to support our students, and how we can use that information to ensure that we are monitoring our impact really carefully. Now, in the last couple of weeks, the Ministry of Education has released the new inspection framework. So all schools in the UAE and throughout the majority of the modern world are under the inspection, the kind of process of schools inspection to ensure that they are all practicing in an optimal fashion. And the new framework hasn't been ratified yet, but it is up for review. So if you want to read it and review it, please check out our newsletter. We've got the links there. And the MOE, the Ministry of Education, are taking feedback from practitioners around the new framework and the expectations that are there. So there are 10 inspection performance standards within the new framework. The most important one for us as inclusion and well-being practitioners is Standard 7, Performance Standard 7, PS7, Inclusive Education for Students of Determination. Now, within that performance standard, we have got 3 branches. We've got 7.1, Identification and Interventions, 7.2, Partnerships, and 7.3, Learning Pathways. So within those, we have procedures and practices, planning and monitoring, feedback and review, communication, guidance and reporting, participation and progress, and progression and transition. So looking at all 6 of these performance standard criteria, we can see that data management and data monitoring is key to each part of these. In order to ensure that each one is done properly, we need to have accurate data informing our practice. And it is like a feedback loop, a thread, where we can see that progression and transition will inform feedback and review, procedures and practices will inform communication, guidance, participation, and progress. So it all interlinks and weaves together to form what we hope will be a really robust system of support for our most vulnerable students, our students of determination. Now, when we speak about students of determination, we're speaking about students who have any kind of barrier to their learning. Now, we categorize them as tier 1, 2, and 3, but don't forget that we also have our students who are more able, gifted, and talented. And we have students who have social and emotional needs as well. So you've got a whole gambit of students who fall under this inspection performance standard 7. So the purpose of tracking and triangulation. Can everybody see my screen? Just to make sure. Super. Thank you very much. The purpose of tracking and triangulation, from any systems perspective, to make sure that you've got a robust system, you've got to think almost like a production line. So imagine that we are, as a school, we're like a factory. We take in a product that is raw, has not been processed. We apply certain processes, and at the end, we want an output, something that's tangible and measurable. So our input are our students before they've received support. That's our input. Our process is what we can do as educators, as special educators, and as a school as a whole, what we do to ensure that they get access to a meaningful education. And our output, we hope, are students who are ready for third level, ready for social and emotional demands of the world, and job ready eventually once they go through their next levels of education. So each of these processes, if we use data accurately, will have a lot of feedback coming in through the system to inform each step. Now, tangibles. What are the things that we should look for as special educators in a school that will help us to know where our school is in terms of data management and if our data is being used accurately? So we should know very clearly what are our expected outcomes. Just as we would have objectives and targets for our students, we should have objectives and targets for our inclusion team. How do we know that data gathering and review is accurate and up to date? Are we triangulating external, internal, and send provision? Are we taking all of those different data points and seeing how they come together to form a whole story? We should have a really in-depth and thorough review of data with evidence so that the school can accurately review everything that's happening and make sure that it's impacting where it should be impacting. We should, if our data management is good, we should see increased identification of needs and increased accuracy of identification. This then will feed back into our planning for interventions and our use of tools and resources. Now, remembering the core goal of any school is to educate a student and to produce a student who is academically achieving within their reach. So as an inclusion team, everything we do should reflect in improved outcomes for graduates. So that means an improved grade point average. When they are leaving our school, what we have done should be influencing their academic achievement. And another tangible that we should have is really robust gathering of documents and reports to show evidence of success for auditing and tracking, and of course, the inspections that happen in the UAE. So I'm going to ask you guys, and you can call out or you can type in the chat, what data do you look at in your department at school? And feel free just to shout out. And please do, we've got, how many people are with us? We've got 65 people. Don't leave me up here silent. What data do you look at in your school? Anybody?
We look into CAT4 data.
Brilliant. Yes, CAT4.
And, we look forward in the progress tests conducted, that one. And
Yeah.
in the school data, what is happening in the term basis and the class teachers' feedback, as well as when you compare the inclusion department, we will look into the IEP progress of the child.
That's quite robust. Exactly. And
There's
we
another
had
one, Kate,
three.
that said mostly CAT4. They do MAP and IEP targets, a combination.
Yeah.
It's getting different data points and insights. Yes, do we have another?
Yes.
Tarsa?
Okay, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. I can speak after
We
him.
have actually in our school, we have also tracking sheet, which is provided by the learning support assistant for each student. Based of their observation, we built up our reporting for these students to tracking the progress of the students of determination.
Okay, brilliant. And it's really important to get multiple perspectives. So you've got the LSA on the ground with the student all day. You've got your SEN teacher, your class teacher, and then any grade group leaders or subject leaders.
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes,
can I ask, what is Lexplore? I don't know Lexplore, if you don't mind.
Yes, it's a reading ability test. So it's quite amazing to check reading abilities or reading levels of kids. So we use Lexplore a lot. It's used for all grades, basically from grade 1 up to grade 12.
Brilliant. So we're getting multiple data points here that will inform where our student is and where they need to be. So looking at standard 7, how does the school assess and analyze student progress? So we've got our map, our external and internals, things like Lexplore. You could have things like Read, Write, Inc. or Learning Ladders, your CAT4, and lots of different data points. And it's really important to know exactly where your students are. Can I ask a really honest question? And it's a difficult one, and one that when I was a Senko, I often struggled to answer this question. Can you put your hand up if you can as close to as accurately as possible, tell me what percentage of your SEN students are on track today? Now, I'm not asking for the number, but do you know what it is? If you're a Senko or a senior leader, do you know what percentage of your students are on track? There are no hands going up. And that doesn't surprise me at all. I'm trying to look through. Okay, we've got a few hands. Yeah. But
A few hands coming. Yeah, a few hands coming up.
Often really difficult to pinpoint whether or not your SEN students were on track. And that's an issue that a huge number of Senkos face. Because you've got so many data points coming in, you're faced with the challenge of, are they on track in terms of their mainstream curriculum, or are they on track in terms of their own personal trajectories? Now, as a Senko, I think it's very important that you allow your students their own personal trajectory so that they are not being constantly judged on an academic achievement that may be beyond their capacity, but that they are judged on realistic, remember, smart, realistic, achievable goals within their reach. So how do we track students of determination? Where do we start? And as we've already seen from, Christoph, feedback from the therapist. Yes, that's very important as well. We've got so many data points that we need to look at. Now, if you want to start tracking your students in a really robust way so that you can show their progress according to their IEP, according to their programs of support, according to therapist feedback, but correlate that to their mainstream academics. That's where we look at our standardized attainment and attainment assessment. So we're looking at MAP and we're looking at the GLs. So with MAP, we need to get the student report and look for their current RIT scores. So the RIT is the score that's averaged across students of that cohort, and it shows you where each student should be in line with their age-related expectations. Now, you don't just look at their current RIT, you should look at their projected RIT as well, so that you can track their progress. And MAP will extract all of this data for you with a couple of clicks. It's really easy to do, and it will set you up with some really easy to use and easy to read graphs. If you're in a UK curriculum, you'll be looking at things like the GL assessments, and Cat 4 is similar to this as well. So we're looking at their standard attainment scores, SAS, and you find out where they are here. And then you take that information and you need to find your way to triangulate that with all of the other external pieces of information. And that's where it can get quite complicated. So from here, we then look at our progress trackers for our IEP and our programs of support. Now, a lot of us will have really robust programs like one toe by toe or one step at a time. Maybe they're doing play therapy. Maybe they're on a sensory diet with their OT. Maybe the student is engaged in a certain program from the therapy center. Now, it's important that you establish a system to make a numerical value for each of those programs. And it's not that difficult. You can allocate percentages for each level of achievement. Like a really simple way to do it is if your student is on, let's say, for example, toe by toe, it's a really commonly used program for literacy development. Let's say that they are working toward their target for that term, they're meeting or they're exceeding. You can allocate a 33%, 66%, or 99% figure for each of those so that you can take a number and give it a numerical value. Once you have numerical values for all of your different programs, that's where you can triangulate easily because you've got numbers and you can create your graphs to show whether or not they're making progress in all areas or in some areas. So tracking your programs of support is really important. We often forget then to look at student workbooks. This is a key element of demonstrating student progress. By appraising their literacy, math, and science books, you can see the impact of programs like Toe by Toe, for example. So if, for example, you have student A, and in term 1, they have made outstanding progress on Toe by Toe, but then you come to their class workbook, and in literacy, you're not seeing any kind of correlation of progress from term 1 to the beginning of term 2. There you have a problem. Obviously, Toe by Toe, while they may be making progress on the program, they're not seeing the impact in their mainstream academics. And it's only when you start to correlate your programs with your mainstream academics that you realize whether something is working or not. Now, we would hope to see a similar line of progress. And when you give numerical values in Excel, it's very easy to pull out a graph that will show you. So here's my progress on Toe by Toe. Here's my progress in literacy. And you would hope that they would correlate. If they don't correlate, then something isn't working or something isn't connecting. And perhaps that program of support is not of value for that student, and you may need to change it. It's very important that we connect information about well-being as well. And this can be done through, there are lots of different apps. I've chosen Yoo-Hoo as an example. This is an app that is used in schools where the student can check in their personal well-being every day. And the app will ping a notification to the teacher if a student is feeling really bad, or if they have some anxiety, or they're having a bad day. It also acts as an interface between the student and the teacher, whether the student wants to remain anonymous or if they want to be identified. So if a student is having a really hard time at school because another student is bullying them, or they just don't get on well with a teacher, or they're struggling academically, they can message whoever their grade group leader is, their homeroom teacher, or somebody they trust through the app in a very safe space. This is particularly useful, I've found, for middle and high school students. We're seeing a huge increase in the incidences of self-harm and of bullying in general, a reduction in well-being in our middle and high school students. And they're often very slow to approach teachers. So an app like this is really useful for that. The beauty of this app also is that it will extract all of your data for you. So you can really easily pull out Excel sheets that will show you the well-being values for grade 8, well-being values for grade 2, and it will help you then to take that data and correlate that with your programs of support. So if you are a counselor, a social worker, a therapist, or a SENCO, and you have, say, 20 students in middle school on a behavioral or emotional support program, you can correlate the data from an app like this. And there are others. There's, oh gosh, I can't remember. There's 2 or 3 other ones that are equally as good. But you can correlate that data from those apps to your programs of support, triangulate and see, is it having the impact that you want? It's always so important to monitor your impact. We spend so much time delivering programs that sometimes we find that you've delivered a program for a year and it hasn't had any impact on the students. And it's a huge waste of both your time, but most importantly, our students' time. So tracking and monitoring impact every term is vastly important.
There's a few other suggestions that were made. I think Christo mentioned EI Pulse and
Okay.
Upstrive. Bhavna mentioned Upstrive.
Upstrive is the one I was trying to think of, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has anyone else used Upstrive or EI Pulse? Can you tell us a little bit about it, Christo?
EI Pulse is almost the same as the previous one you mentioned. They also notify the teachers immediately, and the students can also ask for a specific teacher, to see a specific teacher, or the SENCO, or the pastoral care or counselor, or directly inform the principal if they want to speak to the principal of the school. So it's also, you immediately get notifications, and there's also like a flag, a red and an orange and a green flags almost, so that you can immediately see if there's red flags, very urgent matters or something. So it's, I agree, the well-being is a part that we cannot never ignore.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. It really is. So bringing all of those elements together, well-being, your internal data, your standardized tests, then we triangulate it with your formative, your summative, and your testing. Now, how do we bring it all together? So my suggestion is to create an Excel or some sort of tracking tool where you have all of your data together, and somehow, it is time consuming, but somehow, whatever works for you in your environment, try to create a system where they are all numerically represented in the same way. So give a percentage for all of them. So if you have, say, an A grade or a B grade for one area, and you've got a 50%, a percentage for another, and an SAS for another, it's really hard to triangulate those because they're not in the same language. And you can allocate a percentage, which is probably the easiest, or an ABC type grade, whatever works for you in your setting. But try to get them all to be written in the same language so that you can easily correlate. Now, the setup of this can be quite time consuming, but once you've set up your Excel sheets and you've automated them all, they're pretty easy to do and to track. And once you start extracting that data and you start using it effectively, you'll find that you're streamlining your provision. Your programs of support will be much more accurately disseminated to the students who are actually benefiting from them. And those who are not, you can take off and try a different approach. So it's really, really informative. Now, so what? What is the purpose of all of this? We need to know, does your data triangulate with validity? So does it give you meaningful information that you can actually use? When you triangulate this data, can you see anomalies? Like, does it show you that, for example, a program like Read Write Inc. is having zero impact on students? And do you need to address that with the SLT? Can you identify more accurate groupings using this data? And can this information feed your differentiation? Now, here is the next step, where we take it from the inclusion team and bring it to your grade group leaders and your homeroom teachers and your subject, all of your class teachers. So what are the 4 pillars of differentiated learning? And I'm going to put people on the spot here, and I sometimes struggle to remember this myself, even though I talk about it all the time. Can anyone name the 4 pillars, or even 1 pillar, of differentiated learning? You can put it in the chat or you can shout out, and there's no wrong answers. It's just give a guess. We've got 74 people, so surely somebody can give us a guess. What might the pillars of differentiated learning be?
Maybe IB.
Pardon?
IEP, sorry. IEP.
The IEP is a tool that we use to
Yeah.
differentiate learning. But I'm thinking, think along the lines of, okay, we've got universal design. That's not one of these, but that is a good tool.
Accommodation and modification.
Yes,
Yeah.
these are 2.
Adaptation as well.
Which one?
Adaptation also. Adaptation, modification, and accommodation.
Yes, I want to add learning styles, multiple intelligences we can use. I'm not sure.
Actually, content, process,
Okay.
product.
Yeah, well, all of these are essentially different ways of saying these things. So we've got our we can differentiate through content, we can differentiate through our depth of knowledge, our intended goals, or our methods of instruction. So essentially it's our content, process, our depth of knowledge, all of these things we can differentiate. And the teaching and learning styles, yes, I'm seeing Michelle, we've got, so that would be under the method of instruction. They're all the same, it's just different terminology. So when we have really accurate data management, then we can really accurately inform our content, our depth of knowledge, our goals, and our methods of instruction. When we have really accurate data management, we can use that differentiation. Do we have another? No. Okay, we can use that differentiation to inform our learning strategies like we have here in the IEP. So when we are talking about, you'd have our target, but then we need to look at how will we achieve that target. And our targets can be achieved in class with the teachers through differentiating the content where appropriate, depth of knowledge where appropriate, whether that is greater challenge or let's say a slightly reduced challenge. And I use that very carefully, because we often hear, one of the first things we hear for students of determination is, oh, reduce the challenge. Absolutely not. We should not reduce the challenge. We should reduce the expectation of the outcomes, but never reduce the challenge. Every student should be challenged equally within their own capacity. So you're changing the intended goals and the method of instruction. You're not necessarily changing the challenge. It's really important that we remember that. Now, I put in this is another tool that I've recently become familiar with. It's called Kinteract. Has anybody here used Kinteract in their school? No, not yet. I think it's relatively new, probably only in the last few years. But Kinteract is, it's a data management system or tool that you can take just for your SEND department, or your whole school can take it for the school as a whole. And this will triangulate for you automatically. So if you install this, it will track all of your map data or your GL. It will track all of your Cat4s. It will track all of your teacher input as well. So your teachers for every lesson can upload, did the student achieve their intended outcomes? Are they working toward meeting or exceeding? You can track your SEN interventions on this, and it will pull out pre-triangulated data for you. So it will show you where your students are making progress or where they're not. And it saves so much time, and it's really affordable. I think I'm actually not sure what the pricing is, but it's pretty cheap per student. So you could take it only for your SEND department either. There are a couple of different platforms that do something similar to this, but Kinteract is the one that I've seen that triangulates everything together for you. So instead of having to do all of your Excel sheets manually, this will track it for you, and you can program it to track any program of support that you're using. So if you've got a program of support from your home country and it's not available in the UAE, but you want to use it, you can program this tool to do it for you.
I just want to add on for Kinteract. I was lucky enough to have a chance to take a quick look while it was being demonstrated. And what I found so amazing was the fact that it coordinated everybody's response to one child. So you as an Arabic teacher, you as a PE teacher, you as a science teacher, you as a homeroom teacher, everyone could put in their comments for this one child and create a wholesome communication, which is what I found was the most challenging thing when I was in school. So when Kinteract sort of showed this part of it, I think that was the part that impressed me the most. The fact that everybody could go on and see what everybody else had commented about the child and the progress that the child was making.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that will tell you what percentage of your students are on track live at any one time. It's really great tool. Okay, everyone, I actually went through that way quicker than I thought I would. I hope I didn't rush too much. Does anybody have any questions?
Catherine, I do. Do you prefer that we use this triangulation only for our students of determination, or for the full school, the whole school? I know the bigger schools will be tough, but I am at a smaller school. So do you think we need to use it for all our kids, or only the students of determination?
I think it should be used for all children. Now, I've worked in the Middle East for the last 10 years, and Harmeet has worked here for a few years more than that. And I think I know from my perspective, having worked with probably more than 100 schools, I haven't seen any school to triangulate fully their complete data.
Yes.
It's a huge job. It's highly, highly time consuming, but it is definitely worth it. As an inclusion practitioner, I would say start with your own department. If
Yes.
you've got to start somewhere, and triangulation for inclusion it will save you hours in the long run. It is time consuming at the front end, but if you do it properly, it saves you hours, and you can literally pull up any student's information at any time, see where they are, and really accurately allocate support for them. So you can see if, like I was saying, if a program isn't having an impact, you've got to change it. And it can be
Yes.
very hard to see that unless you're accurately triangulating your data.
So Christo,
Yeah,
if you don't have a very big school, you might actually look at Kinterect to see if you could start that program in your school. I think it would be worth your while, because Kinterect can be, you can adjust it you can buy it accordingly for however many students you need. So it might be worth a while if you want to do the whole school, because it would be really good to see how, of course, it's important to see how each and every child is doing. So this might be the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, because as you know, and I will not mention my school's name, but like many schools in the Middle East, the finances or the boss or the owner, they give final approval, and sometimes they stick with programs they bought 5 years ago, and they believe this is great, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't give you any data. And then there's brand new great platforms, and we need to change their minds about this. And then I just wanted to add, in the last month, I also joined 2 presentations or demonstrations. The one was TESS, you know, the TESS platform where you can also apply for jobs and all of that. So TESS has a brand new, I don't know how new, but it's a new platform for Senkos to save Senko's time, and it's a lot focused on exactly, or not exactly, but the same kind of this Kinterect. I don't know Kinterect, but it also has all of these feedback from everybody is included. So they call it provision.
Oh, you're on mute. You've gone mute, Christo.
Sorry, ma'am. So, as you know, in the Middle East, the owners or the bosses or the owners of the school, they need to give us permission for the platforms. So sometimes they stick to the same platform. They bought a platform for the school or platforms for the school a couple of years ago, and they stick to it. So it's quite challenging to change their minds to look at new, better, more modern or more better platforms to use. So that's quite challenging sometimes, because sometimes they bought platforms that are of no use. You don't have any data of that. So that's the one thing. Then I just want to mention, in the last month, I attended 2 demonstrations of it's almost the same as Kinterect. The one was from TESS, the TESS website where you can also apply for jobs. They have a platform, they call it Provision Map for Senkos.
Yes,
so this is amazing. I was quite impressed with this. I will definitely look at this Kinterect as well, because I don't know this, but I was very, very, very impressed with the TESS's provision map. And then a month ago, I attended the CLASS system. It's quite big in America. The CLASS system was also, it can assist a lot with triangulation. So I think from a Middle Eastern side of things, I think the owners, and I'm a Senko, so the Senkos and all of us, we need to fight hard for the owners and the management to understand that there's fantastic amazing platforms out there that can save time. And at the end, we want to spend time with the kids, not spend time in front of computers with data. So one thing, I think some of the schools have a person or two that does their data at the school, data persons. That will be amazing, but we don't have that luxury, so it's quite time consuming.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much, Krista. They're really useful insights. We have another, Michaela, just bought EduKey. How do you find it, Michaela? That's okay.
Sorry, I was struggling to get off mute. We've just bought it, actually, so it's not all set up yet. But when I worked in the UK, that's what I used to use. And just like you said, you put all the interventions in, and then each child has the profile. So you can pull up a child and it goes all through the years. So you can say a child starts in FS1, you can pull up their whole school career and what interventions they've had. And then termly, you can analyse these. And as you said, it comes out in graphs, etc., as to what interventions they've had against their progress tests, CAP4s, everything as well.
Yeah.
You can also write IEPs in there as well. So they track all the IEPs and whether the children have achieved their targets and give you ideas about what to do next as well. Brilliant. So it sounds very good, but we'll see.
I'm sure like most of these, a lot of them are similar. And it's the key component is ensuring that the input is up to date. So making sure your teachers and your SEND teachers and your LSAs are all accurately uploading their input, because that's the only reason that it wouldn't work. I mean, the systems are there, we know they work, but we need to have the input in there to ensure that the data is there to manage. But if you're a SENCO and you can demonstrate really strong progress from your team for your students because of interventions of your team, you can then go, as Krista was saying, you can go to your school owner, you can go to your principal and say, we are having this much impact. We need one more SEND teacher, and we will continue to see these trajectories in our students. And that really, really helps in terms of getting funding or getting funding even for programs. If you can demonstrate that a program is really having an impact on academics, it's much more, you've got a much stronger case when you go for funding to your senior leadership team.
EduKey is not too expensive either. I think we paid, it's about £800 a year for the whole school.
For the whole school, how many students have you?
So we've got 900, but it's not based on numbers of students. I don't think it's based on numbers of students. It's just a program for your whole school. So it means you can monitor those children that might not be on your SEN register, but might be level 1, or might be those children that actually need intervention but are not SEN. There might be the higher achievers that are getting more intervention, or your ELL children that need more intervention as well. So it's not just kind of an SEN program.
Yeah, Kinteract is the same. It does everything. It does for the whole school as well. So I guess a lot of those programs are very similar in what they do. That's awesome. And I hope it works well for you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Is anyone else using a specific program that they're finding really useful?
Can I just say something, Catherine? I'm just curious here. Michaela, would you, once you have set up the EduKey, would you just maybe on the next forum come back and just feedback on that? Because I'm quite curious to know, or just feedback on how it works, because it'll be good for the others to know. Or if anybody starts using the Kinteract, it'll be good to give feedback on which system has worked well for them.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to do that when it's all set up and we see how it works. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Super. Tarasai, you had your hand up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a very wonderful webinar. We all know that data is the far most important requirement by KHDA. But I've got some questions I want to ask with regards to KHDA and in terms of our inclusion part. Last year, in the previous years, we used to have a separate rubric or like a separate inspection framework. But now, as we see now, they have taken quite a number. I remember when we used to have partnership with parents, they've kind of put some of the information into the main one. Does that mean that one is now redundant or it is no longer in existence? Another thing also, in terms of data, we are making use of PASS, and it has been really important at whole school level. And not only that, last year it was mandated by KHDA that we use PASS. So they actually like what they do with the GL CAT4. So that as when we measure the aptitudes, that's our CAT4 and our curriculum-based test, our MAP, depending on the curriculum you're from, we are also measuring that well-being aspect and triangulating it, of course. But do you think they have something as well coming up in terms of measuring of well-being is concerned? Because we're pretty clear, we all know our, for the whole school, we have our curriculum assessments, we have our CAT4 for our cognitive or aptitude, but the well-being aspect, so that I'm talking about data at like the whole school level. So anything from KHDA. Of course, these tools, like I like the ones that would give like information on a day-to-day basis. It is actually more important. Those shout-out calls to the counselor. In terms of those particular ones, do you think KHDA will have something that is actually like a requirement?
Okay, so to answer your first question, yes, once the new inspection framework is ratified, then the old one will be made redundant. And this framework is going to be federal, so it will be applied across all Emirates. There won't be a difference between any of the Emirates. To answer your second question, do I think that there will be a standardized assessment for emotional well-being? I don't think so, not in the coming future. There is a robust student well-being survey that's carried out. The data from which is published, I personally don't think that that data is hugely valuable in terms of an impact that it has on students. It is valuable in terms of kind of at a meta level for the government to do some strategic planning in terms of logistics around supporting well-being in the community, from a medical and a care perspective. So no, I don't think that they're going to ask us to do something like the CAT4 for well-being. I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about it, and I wouldn't imagine they could. It would be hard to quantify social and emotional well-being in a way that would be non-gendered, non-culturally specific, and non-faith specific. It's kind of hard to appraise it. And we're in such a diverse area here. I don't think there would be one that would give us accurate data yet. There may be in time, but not yet.
Wow, oh, wonderful. I think one of the major steps that have happened is doing away with that separate framework. Not only was it tedious, but it took away the whole idea of inclusion, where people thought it is only for the inclusion team. So I really like the idea that they have taken quite a number of components from that. It was a very, detailed one. And they have put it in such a brief and succinct manner on the big one. I think this will, in a way, improve the mindset and acceptance and, everything else on inclusion in terms of, the whole school stakeholders. So I think it is actually a wonderful job on this particular framework. And we just look forward to it.
I agree with you. And if you look, if you read through the performance standards, all 10 of them have some kind of inclusive feel to them. They all resonate inclusion. So it's not standalone. It's like that golden thread. And I think we've got a couple, Mr. Sean Lewis was on the inspector's training course with me a couple of, gosh, it's nearly a year ago, I think. And they spoke about hi Sean, spoke about the golden thread that weaves through the whole performance standards.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have one question. Regarding the inclusion team, when you mentioned the inclusion team, you're talking about SEN teachers, social workers, psychologists, all these people?
Yes. So I've seen different categorizations of inclusion teams. Sometimes the counselors and social workers are held outside of the inclusion team. I personally, from experience, found that an inclusion team should incorporate anybody who's working with barriers to learning. So that is your social emotional, your counselors, psychologists, LSAs, and SEN TAs. Your SEN teachers, your SENCO, and your head of inclusion, and your principal or VP, depending on who's your line manager for the head of inclusion. So they should all be part of the inclusion team, as well as possibly your EAL provision and your G&T provision. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody.
It's a big team, actually.
It's huge. It is huge, but all working towards the same kind of goal, in that you're modifying the curriculum.
Thank you so much for you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, guys? And thank you very much for your comments in the group. It's helpful. We have released our, I've just added a message in the group. We've released our April newsletter, and that has a link to all of the recordings. I also put a link to all of the recordings at the top of the chat. We update, Harmeet and I update our LinkedIn pretty much every day. We have updates for inclusion and well-being. Our Instagram is the same. So please do follow us, and please do like and subscribe to our channels, because it helps us grow and reach more and more people. We are always free and voluntary. If anybody would like to come and help us present, if you've got a really good idea or something that's worked really well, please do join us. Please let us know. And we're always looking for people to come and support and present with us. Ms. Harmeet, do you want to tell us about your LSA forum tomorrow?
Yes, so tomorrow at 5 p.m. We run a LSA forum. So Catherine and I have started, or rather we started at the start of the year. We have been training the LSAs who are now presenting to other LSAs. So that is free and again open to all the LSAs in school. So if your school has LSAs, do encourage them to attend. Our attendance for that forum stands around 150 LSAs each time. So that shows the need and the desire that these LSAs have for more information. And this is again a forum by LSAs for LSAs. So it encourages them to come on and to learn to speak and to have a voice, which is very, very important.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll get the forum recording up in the next day or two. Thanks, everyone, for your contributions and your time and attention. Please do share the information with anyone who you think might benefit. And we will see you back here next month, where our focus will be on well-being. Thank you so much, everyone. Ramadan Kareem and Ma Salama.
Sorry, just for a question here. What's the name of your page? You can find us on incluzun.com.
I'll put all of the links on right now. I'll add them to the chat.
And you can also find all the links to the, if you want to go on our mailing list as well, please do let us know. We're quite happy to mail everything out to you.
Yeah. Okay. I've shared all of the links again on the chat.
All right. Thank you,
Right.
everyone.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
lovely evening.
Bye.
you.
Miss
Bye-bye,
Arlene,
guys.
shall I
Bye.
send you a link and we can hop on after?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye,
Have a good
Hemi.
day.
Thank you
See
very
you,
much.
Sean.
Thank you,
Bye,
Miss.
Catherine.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Miss.
Thank you.
Bye,
Welcome.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Taxi.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Case, I don't know what's wrong with my camera. It's not intentional to have it off.
No worries. No
Thanks for your
worries.
input.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.